The season's opener, the 5th Grand Prix to be staged at Melbourne. High hopes for the defending Constructors' champions Ferrari. Michael Schumacher third on the grid, just behind the two McLarens. Mika Häkkinen, the defending Drivers' Champion, taking pole. His teammate David Coulthard alongside him on the front row, missing pole by 0.354 of a second. When the lights went out, the season was underway in earnest, and immediately the McLarens went into a commanding lead as the Ferraris mixed it with the Jordans further back. For Mika Häkkinen, this was the 3rd year running that he claimed pole position at the opening race, and in the early stages he was in no mood to let that advantage slip. Johnny Herbert's Jaguar season, his debut season for them, ended early, not even making the end of lap 1. Next to go, Herbert's teammate, Eddie Irvine, spinning out after a collision with Pedro de la Rosa, who also went out with suspension damage. So that brought out the safety car for the first time in the 2000 season. McLaren still running up front, but this was bad timing for David Coulthard. First he punctured, and then on the restart he was back into the pits with a misfire. The pit stop dragged on, and Coulthard, from running at the head of the field with his teammate Mika Häkkinen, went right to the back. Then he went all together, retiring with a blown engine. So McLaren running with just Häkkinen against the might of the Ferraris, Schumacher and Barrichello. Further back down the order, Jacques Villeneuve and Mika Salo were running together. Villeneuve holding up a whole train of cars. He was eventually to finish a fine 4th. But disaster for McLaren when Häkkinen retired with engine problems at the end of lap 18. Both McLarens out of the opening race. It looked as though they played straight into the hands of Ferrari. Michael Schumacher out in front. Schumacher had missed 6 races during the 1999 season. Now he was back in form. Mika Häkkinen could only reflect on Schumacher's supremacy. Out went the Jordan of Trulli, retiring from 4th at the end of lap 35. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen completed the Jordan misery. He'd led at one stage, but now he too was forced into retirement. Rubens Barrichello, in his first race for Ferrari, overtook Michael Schumacher for the lead, but he needed one more pit stop at the end of lap 46. Jenson Button's promising debut finished at lap 46. He retired when he was in 6th place. He'd actually started 21st. So Michael Schumacher led home a Ferrari 1-2 at the end of 58 laps around Melbourne. Michael Schumacher's 36th win of his career in 129 Grand Prix, and his first win since Monaco the previous season.
Thanks really to the guys. They have done a fantastic job. I mean, not just the car is reliable, but it's so bloody fast, this car. I'm really, really delighted to drive this car.
For round 2, the teams were in Brazil, but the massive crowd had eyes for only one man, Rubens Barrichello. He was under pressure to perform all weekend after that brilliant Ferrari 1-2 in the season's opener. But it was Mika Häkkinen who took pole again, the defending champion snatching his 23rd pole position in 130 Grand Prix. Disappointment though for Pedro Diniz, the Brazilian, out of the race after Sauber withdrew their cars after high-speed rear wing failures. At the start, once again, both McLarens on the front row. But Schumacher was quick to come up right on the tail of Mika Häkkinen. The first lap was a fascinating duel between these two, who both won the Brazilian Grand Prix twice before. Schumacher just wouldn't let Häkkinen get away, and at the end of lap 1, slipped through on the inside to take the lead. Rubens Barrichello was in equally good form, and he went past Coulthard for 3rd. Now the crowd were really getting their money's worth. Michael Schumacher leading, Häkkinen in 2nd place, and Rubens Barrichello also in line to go onto the podium. Schumacher set the fastest lap, considerably inside Häkkinen's previous record, and then Barrichello took Häkkinen for 2nd. Ferrari were repeating their exploits of Melbourne. Schumacher in particular having no truck with back markers. The first corner was the favourite place for overtaking, this time Trulli past Irvine for 5th. Then both Ferraris came in for pit stops, and it was Häkkinen who retook the lead. Schumacher, though, was soon in close attention. But disappointment for the home crowd and for their favourite, Rubens Barrichello, retiring after 20 laps with hydraulics problems. Barrichello, it seemed, destined never to win his home Grand Prix. 7 laps later, Mika Häkkinen into retirement at McLaren. Michael Schumacher took over the lead once more. No points in 2 races for the defending champion. Jenson Button continued to impress. He went past Jos Verstappen for 7th place. The importance of that manoeuvre only realised later on. So it was Michael Schumacher being chased home by David Coulthard, although Coulthard was later disqualified from 2nd for front wing infringements. That promoted Jenson Button to 6th, and the first point was gained of his Grand Prix career. So for Michael Schumacher, 2 out of 2 at the start of the 2000 season, and Ferrari were overjoyed. The trophy presented by another sporting legend. In the Drivers' Championship, a full house for Michael Schumacher, Giancarlo Fisichella in 2nd place and Rubens Barrichello in 3rd. Ferrari had dropped only 6 points in 2 races. McLaren had yet to get off the mark. At Imola, Mika Häkkinen took the 3rd pole in succession, 24th of his career. Alongside him on the front row, Michael Schumacher, picking up his first front row position of the season, and he was, of course, the championship leader. Right at the start, Häkkinen got away well. Michael Schumacher was busy defending 2nd place, even from his teammate Rubens Barrichello. With Häkkinen escaping, Schumacher claimed a solid 2nd, while Coulthard battled with Barrichello. But Coulthard couldn't find a way through. For Jenson Button, the San Marino Grand Prix ended early. He spun off and Genet went with him. 23 laps completed. Häkkinen in the lead, Michael Schumacher in 2nd place, Barrichello still in front of David Coulthard. Pit stops would be crucial in this race. Michael Schumacher and Häkkinen pitted at the same time. McLaren were quicker at work on their car. Eddie Irvine learned how difficult it was to overtake as he resumed his battle with Jarno Trulli in the Jordan. Williams failed to pick up anything in San Marino when Ralf Schumacher retired. It was McLaren against Ferrari in the pits again. And once more, McLaren came out on top. David Coulthard showing that it is possible to overtake, but probably best in the pit lane. Back out on the circuit, and Coulthard was able to pull away from Barrichello's Ferrari. After the 2nd round of pit stops, Michael Schumacher went into the lead, thanks to a delay of just 6.2 seconds. He lapped everybody up to 5th and 6th placed Villeneuve and Salo, and came home a comfortable winner, almost a lap ahead of his teammate Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello home in 4th place. But it was 3 wins out of 3 for Michael Schumacher, the 38th Grand Prix victory of his career and his 74th podium appearance. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone, where qualifying was disrupted by rain. So Rubens Barrichello lined up for his 3rd pole position of his career and his 1st for Ferrari. Heinz-Harald Frentzen for Jordan just missed out on pole by .003 of a second. It was an all-McLaren row 2, with Michael Schumacher, the championship leader, starting from row 3 alongside Jenson Button. And the start was a disaster for Michael Schumacher. Trying hard to find a way down the outside, he lost out, first to Jenson Button and then to his brother Ralf Schumacher. So it was Barrichello in the lead, being chased by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, with the two McLarens, third and fourth. Lap 17, Coulthard ahead of Häkkinen, Michael Schumacher still not showing in the top 6. The race started to open up after the first round of pit stops. Frentzen in from second place. This gave Coulthard the chance to move up to challenge Rubens Barrichello. And Coulthard took his chance spectacularly well. Sweeping past the Ferrari and into the lead. Coulthard came into the pits, Barrichello went back into first place. But for the second race running, hydraulics failure put Barrichello out. Sheer entertainment for the crowd and a bit of powerboating en route back to the pits. Frentzen slipped back from fourth place and he retired. So it was a Coulthard win. Häkkinen in second place, the first non-Schumacher winner of the season. The result which kick-started McLaren's year 2000. Coulthard obviously delighted to have won his home Grand Prix. But it was still Ferrari way out in front in the Constructors' title race by 17 points from McLaren. For Coulthard, his 7th Grand Prix win, his first since Belgium in 1999, and his second in succession at Silverstone.
It's great for the team. We've got both cars, first and second. Obviously, I'm very happy for myself to win this race, to win it a second time. It's just fantastic. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season.
Round 5 at Barcelona, and Michael Schumacher claimed the first pole position for him of the season. He'd won here in 1995 and 1996. Mika Häkkinen, the defending champion, alongside him on the front row. Schumacher made the start and tried to block Häkkinen's charge from second place. But Schumacher was soon under pressure from all quarters, although he did just hang on to the lead. Two men in trouble, Pedro de la Rosa and Jean Alesi. Both of them out of the race. 15 laps completed. Michael Schumacher still leading. His brother Ralf behind Mika Häkkinen in third place. Coulthard and Barrichello with work to do from 4th and 5th. Michael Schumacher came in for his first pit stop. The fuel hose just wouldn't come out of the car. Schumacher accelerated away, and refueler Nigel Stepney was left with a damaged ankle. Michael Schumacher went back into first place when Häkkinen called into the pits. Häkkinen, though, was enjoying his best race of the season so far. McLaren at last apparently having sorted out their reliability problems. After the second round of pit stops, Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello in the pits together, David Coulthard came through to take both of them. Up front, Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen pitted together on their second stops. Again, a fuel hose problem for Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen left the pits to take the lead. Not an auspicious race for Ferrari or for Michael Schumacher. Schumacher was in trouble with a slow puncture. Coulthard overtook him for second place. Coulthard showing no ill effects from an horrific plane crash just 5 days earlier. It was a damage limitation exercise for Ferrari. Michael Schumacher held up his brother Ralf, and Barrichello went past the pair of them. More disappointment for Jenson Button. He went out after being in 6th place. So another McLaren 1-2. This time Häkkinen first, his first win of the season, the 15th of his career.
I don't know how I could explain it, how pleased I am. I'm just over the moon, or how you say it.
The European Grand Prix at Nürburgring in Germany, so important for McLaren, Mercedes, and of course for Michael Schumacher. But it was David Coulthard who took pole position from Michael Schumacher by 0.138 of a second. Coulthard's first pole since the middle of the 1998 season. But it was his teammate Mika Häkkinen who made the best start, darting between Schumacher and Coulthard, and he was in first place by the first corner. Once again, pole had proved to be something of a jinxed position. Nobody had won from pole since Häkkinen 11 Grand Prix earlier. For Jordan and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the race ended early. Michael Schumacher on a charge. Into first place, taking Häkkinen just before the chicane. But then conditions began to play a part in the race. The rain started to splatter down. Marc Genet was one man called out. Pedro Diniz was another, although he did recover to get back in the race and finish only 2 laps down on the leaders. Coulthard went into the pits first, followed by Schumacher and Häkkinen together. Schumacher then coming out of the pits and onto the track ahead of David Coulthard. Conditions deteriorated further. Häkkinen passed David Coulthard for second place. Ricardo Zonta in a bit of a spit. Jos Verstappen went past Eddie Irvine, then lost control, and Ralf Schumacher was caught up in the ensuing drama. Häkkinen, meantime, could do nothing about Michael Schumacher as he was trying to deal with back markers. So Michael Schumacher stayed in the lead after the second round of pit stops. Alexander Wurz and Johnny Herbert, Formula One ballet. But Michael Schumacher, sure-footed as ever in the wet conditions, came home to win yet again. His 4th win of the season. His first in Germany in a Ferrari. Round 7, the most prestigious Grand Prix of them all. 78 laps around the streets of the Principality of Monaco. The championship race hotting up with Michael Schumacher's win at the Nürburgring, but the McLarens were certainly not out of contention. Michael Schumacher took pole position, the 25th of his career, pipping Jarno Trulli by 0.271 of a second. After the first start, the track was blocked following a collision between Jenson Button and Pedro de la Rosa. So the drivers had to make their way back for a restart. Michael Schumacher streaked away once the lights were out, but he was pushed hard by the Jordan of Trulli. Schumacher as accomplished around the tight, twisty corners of Monaco as he had been in the rain at the Nürburgring. Häkkinen, 5 places back from the leader and 13 seconds adrift. The champion was being delayed by a strange problem. Telemetry plate had slipped under his brake pedal. It required lengthy attention down at the McLaren pits. Michael Schumacher then leading from David Coulthard as Jarno Trulli slowed and retired from the race. Others went out in more spectacular fashion. Ralf Schumacher put offline by Häkkinen emerging from the pits. And then Michael Schumacher came out from his pit stop and retained the lead from Coulthard. Ricardo Zonta at Saint-Devote. And then Michael Schumacher was suddenly slow coming across the start-finish line. He had a broken suspension. Coulthard went through into first place. Coulthard's teammate, Mika Hakkinen, was still out of the points in 7th place. Ahead of him, Mika Salo. Overtaking at Monaco, notoriously difficult. But the final point did come Hakkinen's way when Heinz-Harald Frentzen lost it at Saint-Devote. Frentzen, a championship challenger for Jordan last season. This year, he was struggling to pick up a point. His retirement promoted Rubens Barrichello to 2nd, equaling his career best finish, and Giancarlo Fisichella to 3rd. David Coulthard, though, was first across the line. In the Drivers' Championship, he was just 12 points adrift now of Michael Schumacher, with Mika Hakkinen and Rubens Barrichello 3rd and 4th. Just 5 points between Ferrari and McLaren after 7 races. Coulthard, the first British winner at Monaco since Jackie Stewart in 1973.
Okay, I've benefited today from problems with Michael and with Jarno, but that's Monaco, and I've had I think my fair share of bad luck over the years, so I'm quite happy to take this win today.
For round 8, it was back across the Atlantic for the Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal. Problems for David Coulthard before the start. Mechanics were still working on his car as the formation lap began. He was certain to be penalised for that. Took his place, though, on the front row of the grid as the lights went out and challenged Michael Schumacher for the lead. But Schumacher, championship leader, was in excellent form once more. Villeneuve too showed up promisingly in the early stages, coming through to 3rd place. Schumacher chased by Coulthard. Villeneuve performing well in front of his home fans. Rubens Barrichello holding up Hakkinen for 4th. Coulthard did incur a stop-go penalty, which effectively ruined his chances of gaining a first place in Canada. That didn't stop him trying, though. This was the first of several excursions for Coulthard, and he was lucky to get back on the track. Seen from the other angle, he almost collides with Verstappen. Villeneuve held 2nd place until Barrichello spotted a way through at the hairpin. Frentzen's dismal season continued. Another retirement for the Jordan man. Villeneuve was falling back down the order, overtaken here by Hakkinen. Barrichello's good work on the track was lost by Ferrari off it when they didn't have the right tyres ready for him at his pit stop. Michael Schumacher now with a commanding lead. But conditions started to deteriorate. Even Michael Schumacher couldn't stay on the slippery track. Pedro Diniz and Pedro de la Rosa, both squabbling over the same part of the circuit. Jos Verstappen enjoyed a great drive. He went past Jarno Trulli for 5th. Villeneuve lost control at the hairpin and took out Ralf Schumacher. Coulthard, still running, had an altercation with Alexander Wurz. It was a Ferrari 1-2 with Michael Schumacher first, his 5th win of the season, the 40th of his career. And he'd completed an amazing 96% of the possible laps so far. But this time, he owed a lot to Barrichello.
He protected me at the end as I was going very slow just to play safe, and he's a good man. So one day I will pay back for that, and thanks for that.
It was back to Europe for the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. Michael Schumacher, 4 times a winner in France, claiming his 27th pole position of his career by 0.1 of a second from David Coulthard in the McLaren, 2nd in the championship. At the start, it was Michael Schumacher who blasted into the lead, blocking Coulthard's way through, and Coulthard was overtaken by the second Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello. In the very early stages, everything going Ferrari's way. Villeneuve and Frentzen completing the top 6. Coulthard, though, was desperate to get past Barrichello and eventually found a way through at the Adelaide hairpin. He'd seen off one Ferrari. What could he do about the other? Meanwhile, the Jordans were involved in their own private battle. Trulli going past Frentzen for 6th place with a bit of a bump. Coulthard then set about Michael Schumacher and snatched the lead from him again at the Adelaide hairpin. He retained 1st place after the 2nd round of pit stops. This was a new, determined David Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher picked up 6th when he overtook Jarno Trulli. Michael Schumacher was really in trouble when Mika Häkkinen swept past him for 2nd. No points for Schumacher in France when his Ferrari failed him. But Barrichello was promoted to the podium. The checkered flag for David Coulthard, though not from a supermodel, and a McLaren 1-2, the 3rd of the season. 9th Grand Prix win in 99 races for David Coulthard, who celebrated by signing for McLaren for the 2001 season. Round 10, the Austrian Grand Prix at the A1 Ring, saw Mika Häkkinen on pole position, his first pole since San Marino and the 25th of his career. David Coulthard, in his 100th Grand Prix, joined him on the front row. An all-Ferrari row 2 and career best qualifying from Riccardo Zonta in the BAR. He was 6th. At Jaguar, test driver Luciano Berti replaced Eddie Irvine, who was suffering with stomach problems. The start of the race, Häkkinen and Coulthard accelerated away from the 2 Ferraris. Zonta, over-eager perhaps, went for a gap that wasn't there and took out the championship leader, Michael Schumacher, in retirement at the first corner. The replay shows Schumacher on the inside, gently nudged by Zonta, but enough to put him out of the race. Despite the logjam of cars, the race was not restarted. The safety car came out, Häkkinen and Coulthard duly followed it round. At the restart, a strange-looking order behind the 2 McLarens. Mika Salo in 3rd place, Pedro de la Rosa followed by Johnny Herbert. Rubens Barrichello having to do a lot from 6th place to create an impression. De la Rosa went past Salo for 3rd, and then Heinz-Harald Frentzen retired once more. The German having a disappointing season, to say the least. Rubens Barrichello, whose car was damaged in that first corner incident, went past Mika Salo and was now in 4th place. Zonta picked up a stop-go penalty for knocking Michael Schumacher off the track, but that was no consolation to Michael Schumacher. 18 laps completed in Austria, Häkkinen and Coulthard holding the whip hand. Barrichello was promoted when Pedro de la Rosa retired from 3rd place after enjoying the best race of his career. And so it was another McLaren 1-2. Mika Häkkinen taking the checkered flag ahead of his teammate David Coulthard, the 4th McLaren 1-2 of the season. But after the race, scrutineering found that there was an FIA seal on Häkkinen's car's electronic control unit missing. McLaren would dock the 10 points for his win, although Häkkinen himself retained them in his quest for the driver's title. Now there were just 8 points between the top 3 drivers. The glorious setting of Hockenheim, the venue for round 11, the German Grand Prix. David Coulthard claimed the 10th pole position of his career, qualifying 1.36 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Rain disrupted the qualifying sessions. Rubens Barrichello was way down in 18th place. Coulthard led from the start. Schumacher was struggling. Then another first corner collision, this time with the Benetton of Giancarlo Fisichella. Schumacher's race over again on the first lap. Ferrari just couldn't believe it. It was a McLaren 1-2, Häkkinen having gone past Coulthard, and Jarno Trulli and Pedro de la Rosa again showing up well in the early stages. Rubens Barrichello was having a great race. He cruised past de la Rosa for 4th. Next man in his sights, Jarno Trulli in the Jordan. Ferrari disappointed at the demise of Michael Schumacher, but thrilled by Barrichello's brilliant driving. 3rd place. Just the 2 McLarens ahead of him now. 24 laps gone and the race was disrupted when a spectator got onto the track. That brought out the safety car. Barrichello was able to close on the leaders. Häkkinen went into the pits. So too did Rubens Barrichello. The man who lost out most during this episode was David Coulthard. He was unable to get into the pits until McLaren had cleared Häkkinen. So Coulthard dropped from 2nd to 6th. More problems on the way, a storm approaching. The safety car pulled off, Häkkinen was still in the lead. But the threat was looming from the in-form Rubens Barrichello. The race looked set for a great finale. But then more disruption, the collision between Diniz and Alesi. Once again the safety car came out. On the resumption, Häkkinen in the lead, Trulli in 2nd place, Barrichello 3rd. As the Benetton of Alexander Wurz spun out of contention. The rain arrived. The BARs were involved in their own private squabble. Villeneuve with a big spin after just touching Zonta. Häkkinen into the pits again, this time to change his dry tyres to wets. Barrichello stayed out on the circuit. Would his gamble pay off? Frentzen stayed out and made 2nd place, but then was forced into retirement. Häkkinen now 2nd, Coulthard 3rd. Jenson Button came past Mika Salo for 4th. Barrichello 18th to 1st and his first Grand Prix victory in 124 attempts. Barrichello possibly the most popular winner of a Grand Prix. Certainly Ferrari appreciated it, and so did his teammate. Even the McLaren men were delighted for him.
I was just thinking to myself, you know, that it has to be mine. I mean, yesterday was such a bad day, and it can be good. So let's make it as simple as possible. And I couldn't believe. I'm just, I can't believe my eyes too.
In Hungary, Michael Schumacher, the championship leader, claimed the 28th pole position of his career. He was equal now with the great Juan Manuel Fangio. But he hadn't scored a point since Canada. Here, he led away from the start, but was then overtaken by Mika Häkkinen. Häkkinen continued to lead. Michael Schumacher could do little about it. McLaren, Ferrari, the order of the top 4. But one man in particular, David Coulthard, wanted to change all that. He was closing on Michael Schumacher, but he couldn't get close enough. The second round of pit stops was to prove crucial. Coulthard underway in 6.6 seconds, but even that great work by McLaren wasn't enough to promote him ahead of Michael Schumacher. Schumacher just retained second place. But it was Mika Häkkinen winning in Hungary for the second successive year and taking over the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Häkkinen by 2 now from Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard. In the Constructors' title race, McLaren went ahead of Ferrari by a point.
It was very enjoyable to race, and unfortunately, obviously, I'm not gonna tell you exactly what we did, but the car was very fast.
The rain came down again in Belgium, and that meant a start under the safety car. Mika Häkkinen on pole position, alongside him on the front row, Jarno Trulli in the Jordan. Jenson Button qualified third. Michael Schumacher was in fourth place. With the safety car pulled off, it was up to Michael Schumacher to make progress from fourth. He went past Jenson Button and was on the tail of Jarno Trulli. Meanwhile, Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren was taking full advantage and extending his lead up to 9 seconds. Schumacher went past Trulli. Button tried to squeeze his way through, collided with the Jordan man, and Trulli spun into retirement. But Button didn't get away scot-free. David Coulthard went past him, and then his teammate Ralf Schumacher. Button now down to 5th. Michael Schumacher in the pits. Change from wets to dry tyres. And most of the rest of the field copied his example. Häkkinen still leading. Michael Schumacher followed by his brother Ralf. Jean Alesi now up to 4th. He'd been the first man to change to dry tyres. It had paid off for him. But the surface was still treacherous, as Mika Häkkinen found out. As a result of this spin, he lost the lead. Michael Schumacher going through to first place. Rubens Barrichello, though, after setting the fastest lap of the race, went out with fuel pressure problems. Alesi followed. Prost having failed to pick up a point by this stage of the season. Coulthard back in the picture, overtaking Button and moving up to 4th place. Häkkinen chasing after Michael Schumacher. Schumacher forced to find wet parts of the circuit to cool down his tyres. Ron Dennis, an interested observer of the situation. Crucial moment of the race, Häkkinen closing on Michael Schumacher, back Marcus Zonta, mugged by the pair of them, and Häkkinen swept through into first place with a brilliant overtaking manoeuvre. On towards the checkered flag, Häkkinen with a dynamic victory in Belgium. The championship leader recording his 4th victory of the season. At Monza, an all-Ferrari front row on their home track. Michael Schumacher with his 29th pole, Rubens Barrichello alongside him. Mika Häkkinen had never won at Monza in 8 starts. No doubt at all about whose territory this was. From the start, Schumacher away well, but Barrichello was swallowed up by the midfield as they charged down to the first corner, which had been revised for this Grand Prix. Front runners were through safely. It was Eddie Irvine who was caught out in the Jaguar. Problems for Irvine, but at the next corner, a huge collision involving Barrichello, Coulthard and the 2 Jordans. Then De La Rosa arrived on the scene. Safety car once again was employed. This was the aftermath. Pedro de la Rosa barrel rolling, and unfortunately a 30-year-old marshal, Paolo Gislimberti, was killed in the incident. With the race due to restart, Jenson Button in the Williams went off in strange fashion into the safety barriers. He later retired after just 10 laps. Jacques Villeneuve looked good for a podium position, but then he too was forced into retirement, leaving Ricardo Zonta to fly the flag for BAR. He was involved in a race-long duel with Jos Verstappen. Here they're fighting for third place. Meantime, Michael Schumacher leading and quicker than Mika Häkkinen in second place. Häkkinen's pit stop at McLaren. Efficiently done, but Michael Schumacher stayed out in the lead. Giancarlo Fisichella, an Italian at Monza, didn't have a happy race. Was in fourth place. Now he ran at the back of the field. Michael Schumacher swept to victory. Championship challenge renewed for him and for Ferrari. Häkkinen still in front by 2 points in the drivers' title race. That was beginning to look a two-horse race. The constructors certainly was. Just McLaren and Ferrari involved. The Ferrari fans delighted. Michael Schumacher a very emotional winner.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is your 41st victory, which puts you in equal second all-time with Ayrton Senna. Do those records mean a lot to you?
Yes, it does mean a lot to me. Sorry.
First Formula One Grand Prix in the USA since Phoenix in 1991, and this at the very heart of American motorsport, Indianapolis. Michael Schumacher on pole for the 7th time in the season and the 30th of his career. David Coulthard, 0.126 of a second behind in qualifying, lined up on the front row for the 9th time this season. But he jumped the start. In first place going down to the first corner, with Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen in close attendance. But it seemed certain that Coulthard would gain a stop-go penalty. Jenson Button and Jarno Trulli were both early pits callers after they'd collided in the middle of the pack. Michael Schumacher closed on Coulthard and showed that the Ferrari had the power and the pace to take on the McLaren. The crowd roared its appreciation and delight. Michael Schumacher now in control at Indianapolis. Coulthard came in for his stop-go penalty. That relegated him to the back of the field. More disappointment for McLaren. Flames licking around the engine bay of Häkkinen's car. Now it was a German 1-2-3. Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Though that was to change when Ralf Schumacher came into the pits at Williams. He had a mechanical problem. Frentzen, Villeneuve and Barrichello were fighting over second until Villeneuve spun into trouble. Barrichello took second from Frentzen after a good pit stop at Ferrari. It all looked very simple for Michael Schumacher, but then matters got a little complicated. Schumacher almost losing it and throwing away 10 points. But if that was a wake-up call, it proved very effective indeed. Schumacher won in Indianapolis. Barrichello second. Schumacher back in the lead of the championship.
Seeing so many people here celebrating with us this victory, 1-2 for Ferrari, it's, yeah, the best.
Going into the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, it was possible for Michael Schumacher to clinch the title with one race to go if he won on one of his favourite circuits. Mika Häkkinen qualified alongside him on the front row. This could be the championship decider. There was just .009 between them in qualifying. Who would make the better start? Undoubtedly, it was Häkkinen. Schumacher tried to cover his attack. In the meantime, lost first place. Häkkinen and Schumacher were in a class of their own. Verstappen was one of the early retirements. The rest of the field just couldn't keep pace with the two title contenders. The crucial round of pit stops. Häkkinen due in first at McLaren. Schumacher assumed the lead. Häkkinen needed a good stop here from his crew. And he got it. But meantime, Schumacher was really reeling off lap after quickest lap. Then once again, rain played a part. Schumacher almost collected Alexander Wurz, stranded in the middle of the circuit. Then came in for the pit stop at Ferrari. 6 seconds exactly, advantage Schumacher. He was able to be in and out without losing the lead. Häkkinen now had to come up with something fantastic. Things weren't going quite so well for Ralf Schumacher. He spun out in the Williams. Häkkinen did manage to close the gap, but it wasn't enough. Schumacher swept on to complete the job. The win gave him his third driver's title and the first at Ferrari since Jody Scheckter back in 1979. The celebrations could begin one race early. The champion congratulated every member of his team. Nobody was left out. Rubens Barrichello had played a great supporting role. And on the podium, there was no doubt at all. 3 successive wins, his 8th of the season, his 3rd title. Michael Schumacher aware of the enormity of his achievement.
There was such an outbreak of emotion initially when I crossed the line. I mean, this conditions were difficult today. It's simply great. I mean, imagine what is going on right now in Italy. That must be simply amazing.
In the heat of Malaysia, the end of a long, hard, grueling season. The main issue still to be decided, the Constructors' Championship. There were only 2 teams in it, Ferrari and McLaren. And it was Ferrari and McLaren on the front row of the grid. Michael Schumacher on pole. But Häkkinen made a jump start, and he was into the lead by the first corner. Schumacher being tracked by David Coulthard. Rubens Barrichello fell back. Häkkinen was determined to press on. In the middle of the pack, Diniz, Alesi, De La Rosa and Heidfeld were all involved in a major collision, which brought out the safety car. Question now was whether Häkkinen would allow his teammate David Coulthard through to take the lead, and he did. Häkkänen's job now was to hold up Michael Schumacher, but he fell back to 4th behind the 2 Ferraris. And then was called into the pits to serve the stop and go penalty for jumping the start. McLaren were now up against it, especially as David Coulthard had made his first pit stop and then been delayed behind Jarno Trulli. Michael Schumacher took full advantage, making up time on the track and having a good pit stop of his own. Schumacher now in the lead. Häkkinen worked his way back up to 4th when he went past Jacques Villeneuve. Johnny Herbert had already announced that this was to be his last Formula One Grand Prix. I limped into Formula One, he said, and I limped out of it. Michael Schumacher swept on towards the checkered flag. 145 Grand Prix for him, his 44th win, and his 4th in succession at the end of a season which had brought him 9. Michael Schumacher, the champion, Ferrari, the Constructors' champions, by 18 points in the end from McLaren. For Jean Todt and his men, it had been a brilliant season. Better than any of them could ever have expected. Michael Schumacher, the star of the year 2000 in Formula One.